Rogue is always a very subjective thing, and Robbie, you didn't put VW in top 5. What the heck is wrong with you? We're going to talk about the way that I see the lower half of the format. We're going to talk about top 5 Rogue decks for you guys today. Let's dig on into this, shall we? 33.8% of you guys just have not smashed 11 crap. Let's grab it, smash it. Come on, I want to get to 100K before I die. God. All right, so Rogue is always very subjective, as I said at the beginning of this video, and this is how I'm viewing like the lower half of the sphere. So, oh my God, X-Tech didn't even mention. Oh my God, Robbie, you're so dog shit at this game. Chill out, all right? I'm gonna give my reasoning for this. So, formally underneath the big 5, I did put Phantom Knights above VW, but I want to put VW right here. Now, VW and what I feel are Phantom Knights right now are kind of duking it out for the last spot and top cut here. And I find it most interesting because as soon as Virtual World has kind of started looking at the hemisphere of playing Sword Soul, I feel that that particular homunculus hybrid can actually kind of bump itself up into the top 5 just because that's what, double the variance that you can mess around with, and that would technically bump Phantom Knights down here. But Virtual World still loses to itself. It's a consistency nightmare in that regard. But from where I'm sitting right now, I still think that the deck is borderline bottom of tier 5, borderline of the lower top 5 into what I would begin as the Rogue category. Because, you know, for the first time ever, we have, what, like 6 viable decks instead of like 4. They're kind of going back and forth with each other. So the format kind of expands here. The VW toolbox maintains just that. Chuchi plus Kaliga and Crystal Wing are heck of a cards. I mean, we have builds that aren't even playing these toolbox options at this point in time. So that's something else to remember as well. Like, all of the Sword Soul or all the VW variants, even down to like the Sword Soul variant, they're all just exploring new, crazy, interesting ideas. So that's something to really consider here is how much adaptability can Virtual World really have to maintain that spot. So borderline Rogue into top 5 for sure, but I still think it's tied with Phantom Knights in that regard. Next up here is Flanders. Now, Flanders is in a very, very interesting place in my personal opinion here. This deck loses to like one hand. I'd be like, well, no, it doesn't, Robbie. You're just stupid. I have seen in so much testing here that unless you open up the absolute gas every single time and you defy the odds of consistency, oh, the deck is amazing. Or if decks can just put things in defense mode, they can play around M-Pen. That's a thing. Also, if this deck goes first, and, you know, if a Dark Ruler no more, something that can force the back row to go early and then answer it. I know you have to have like 2 answer cards for this, but it does come up. Flanders, I feel like just at the very core of itself, at its weakest points, is more consistent to lose than initially setting up. I feel like until we see the new initial spell card coming out in Battles of Chaos, this deck will suffer from Rogue Syndrome, which is just, it loses to itself. Alright, as much as I want to say, yeah, Flanders is one of the headliners of Rogue, which it is right now, right? It'll catch a lot of the matchups that it has a huge advantage on. I mean, in its easiest infancy here for Rogue, it breaks, does what it does best. M-Pen is a heck of a card. The Rise of Interaction to disrupt, opening up a well-timed D-Shifter against Tri-Brigade. Oh yeah, that's the easiest stuff in the world right there. But, like I said, because the choke points, unless you open up like the absolute gas, are that vital to the deck, one hand trap's kind of all you need at this point in time. So, yeah, I want to give Flanders a whole lot better credit and say, yeah, they could be tier 1, but right now I think they're headlining the Rogue category at this point. I think a lot of players kind of agree with that too, unless you're one of those people who's like, I never brick, then you're a freaking unicorn, man. Like, there's nothing else about that. Next up is Evil Twins here. So, Evil Twins are definitely below Flanders right now, right? I've seen 3 to 4 variants of Evil Twins doing stuff. Among those was one of the variants that was playing, yeah, enemy controller. Yeah, so you can tribute your stuff, take your opponent's cards. Okay, well, that's good. jokes aside, this deck loses to the one of Call by the Grave. And I know, specifically mentioning a one of is hilarious. Somebody's going to be foaming at the mouth in the comment section and be like, you don't draw that card all that much. This deck also loses to Nibiru. I'm sorry to tell you that, but your entire deck's existence are basically oppressed by two very powerful cards. And looking at this deck set up here, it's also the same thing. Like, you normal summon, you don't have the extender in your hand, you get impermed or ashed, and like you don't have that extender. You literally are just Flanders. You're ending on a very subpar piece, and the difference is at least Flanders can recover on the opponent's turn to attempt to play the game through map. Evil Twins don't get that. Alright, Evil Twins might get like Torrential Tribute and like some other back row, but you better hope that you have another starter in your hand to progress the game on the next turn, or you're picking up your cards and you're walking the heck away from the table. Alright, I wish I could be more optimistic about that. The deck is fantastic when it goes. Don't get me wrong about that. The fact you can produce, what is it, a 4400 beat stick in-house in Archetype just to be able to play, yeah, that's freaking cool. But consistency issues at the core of the day here are where this deck kind of struggles, and I really wish that it could be a little bit better. It just kind of feels like, yeah, the Link 4 made it tier 2, and then after that, we're just a really good floating deck. It's literally all it is. You get a float, a draw, and a pop during the opponent's turn. Really, how much is that worth? Well, I mean, in a slower format, that might be particularly crazy, actually. So, all things considered for that. Next up, I also have to give a little bit of a nod here to Cyber Dragons. Now, Cyber Dragons have been kind of showing up a little bit more in the Rogue category as of late as well, and heck, man, we just got the Cyber Style Structure deck out here. You know what? Zane and friends players out here have been like, yeah, Zane! I mean, okay, so Cyber Dragons searching for the trap card, searching for whatever combo pieces you need, and then your whole purpose is to break things out of the extra monster zone, generate advantage. And then you want to, what, like Cyber Load Fusion, attack over your opponent's board, go second, Kaiju them. So you're going second deck that relies on the opponent doing something. Well, on the flip side of things, if you play against one of the other headliner decks like Flanders, well, End Pen is still going to be a minor inconvenience for you. Rise is going to tear apart your entire board. Cyber Dragons, I feel like, always will have that issue of they need the opponent to interact to get the game going. And if they can't get the opponent to interact, or like in like a weird sense where like the board across the table is just too powerful for them to handle, they're in like the middle scale of power. Because yes, they can do things and they can break those boards, but they need to have so many follow-ups to that as soon as those hand traps start coming down, that it's kind of like a wild card thing. If you have enough, you can get there. If you don't have enough, you just kind of stop halfway through breaking their board, and what you're doing kind of feels very subpar at the end of the day. So I do want to give it up to Cyber Dragons in mention of the Rogue category here, because as much as they can do things at this point in time, it's just not enough. The Cyber Style Structure deck put them more on the map, but I think it kind of made them into a little bit of a more, of course, like failing more so now, because as the stronger decks get better, Cyber Dragons, I mean, they can link out with things in the ED, and that's literally about their strongest suit. So, all things considered for that. Now, the last deck I want to mention here is, of course, Salamander. My entire audience always keeps telling me, Robbie, you gotta mention Salamander. Robbie, Salad's actually just a good deck. Salamander has topped a couple regionals from the same person. We had an invitational come out here a little bit ago where we saw Salamander come back out of the top. Alright? If this deck wins the dice rolls and is able to set up Roar Rage, oh, absolutely, it's fantastic. If this deck goes second, it's probably going to cry. I mean, yeah, you have access code, but how many interruptions can Salad really play through? Because I hate to tell you this, it's not a lot. Unless you're opening up the absolute stone colds here, this deck has the one problem it's always had. It can grind, but if something can put more force behind its grind, then this deck will kind of fall down. So the Link 2 engine that it's got going, if it can disrupt, I mean, right now we live in a format where 1 to 2 interruptions can be enough. A Roar and a Rage can be enough to get the game back to your turn. And if that's the case, okay, then I can see why Salad can be good. But in a world where if, you know, a Cheese Owl Baron and all this other crazy shit sets up a board here, I mean, it's not going to be very fun for the Salamander player, because if there's hand traps around every corner here, backed up with that strong field, it's not going to be a very fun time for the Salad player. So that is my top 5 Rogue decks for this point in time. Guys, please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. Robbie, you didn't mention Praying Kids or Eldritch. What about Heroes, you fucking idiot? You even know what you're talking about? I'll talk about those in another video, but that's where we're kind of sitting for now. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day. Peace out, guys. Thank you, patrons, for making the ride never truly end. Without you guys' support, well, I would probably be doing Truffle Shuffle videos for a living. Guys, please check out Vanquill40 for all of your Cardfight Vanguard content brought to you by Vanquill40. And if you are looking to pick up singles, check out imquillgames.com for your trading card game needs. Thanks for watching, everybody.